Alrighty, let's start today off with GBP USD. It might be a bit loud since I'm at the mall, but I'm going to try my best to be clear. Okay, so first of all, we have to check the news. And we see that we will be having high impact news later in the evening during the US session on USD CAD and CAD pairs. And later during, 2 hours from now, we'll have medium impact on Euro pairs. So something to be careful of if you are trading these pairs, all right? Especially if you are a beginner, sometimes you don't expect volume and then you find out that it's from the news, so that can be bad. Okay, so now starting off with GBP USD, we have our sell zone up top and our buy zone down below. Now, the reason I marked this sell zone was it created an engulfing buy that failed over here, then the price came back, created this engulfing sell. But instead of just dropping, it decided to respect this zone, which is an engulfing sell that failed. Price came back down, created an engulfing buy, and now it is respecting. And the price will continue to go up and down between these two zones until one of the zones break. Okay, since we will be having USD news later in the evening, it can use either of the two to either spike or drop down. Not even that. If the price decides to just play around in this black zone and the news comes, then there's a chance it can also respect these two, meaning it comes up or down, pokes these price levels before escaping, or it can also, with a high volume in itself, shoot up or shoot below these zones. Alright, so what can you do? Is it just wait for the news or wait for the price to come into our zone to find a setup? Right? If I were to go on M15, there are no setups yet. We have an engulfing buy over here, but nothing yet over here. And in the sell zone, we have an engulfing sell or engulfing buy that failed for a potential sell zone. Alright, so we can monitor those two. But either way, if we cannot find anything in M15, since M15 is only an engulfing buy in the buy zone and an engulfing sell in the sell zone, we can go into M5. So go ahead in M5 and mark your zones in case when the price comes and you want to monitor for an entry. Alright, so if I were to screenshot and draw that, draw it real quick. If the price comes into both of our zones, whether it's a buy or a sell, and respects it, meaning it does not break above our sell zone nor below our buy zone, then potentially we can catch a sell from the sell zone and a buy from the buy zone. But if it breaks either of those two zones, then potentially it might want to test a higher area above the sell zone, or it might want to test a lower area below the buy zone. Once it breaks our zones, the next best thing you can do is wait for or look for the next potential setup, right? Next potential setup. Or you can wait for the price to retrace back into the key level to find the opposite setups for a potential entry. Okay? Again, map out or monitor M5 and M15, okay, for your entries, since I'm drawing on H4. Now, our most love-hated relationship pair, GJ. Okay, so GJ has been going on this heavy, super heavy uptrend that has just been going up. But finally, it had created this pit stop, 2 pit stops for us. A buy zone over here and a sell zone, a potential sell zone over here. Okay, so our buy is comprised of an engulfing sell that failed. Price came back, created this first engulfing buy. Then we have the second engulfing buy. Alright, so we know that the buyers over here are still trying to push the price up and trying to keep the price above this limit of the zone. Okay, then our sell zone is a fresh engulfing fail. Not really fresh, okay, but an engulfing fail that has yet to create any engulfing sells within the zone. Okay, so now what can you do? The current price is just right below our sell zone. What you can do is go into M15, try to find any zones that you can see. So on M15, I see that there is an engulfing sell and another engulfing sell over here. So you can map that out when the price comes back in if you want to enter. Make sure M15 closes within. Hi. M15 closes within the zone and creates an engulfing sell before you enter if you want to enter on M15. Or if you want to refine your entry into a smaller time frame with a smaller risk, Then go into M5, and on M5 you can see that we have multiple sells. Engulfing sell, engulfing sell, engulfing sell, engulfing sell, but the price broke up and created this instead. So map this out. This would be your first engulfing sell to monitor in M5. So when the price comes back in, you wait for the price to close within, create an engulfing sell, then you can enter from this M5 engulfing sell into engulfing sell, which should reflect as a sell setup or respecting the M15 zone when you zoom out, okay? Then our buy zone, same thing. Just go and look for anything that could happen. All right, so now what can GJ do? Again, once again, if it decides to respect our zones, then we can look for potential entries for a buy and a sell from our buy and sell zones. But if it breaks above or below our zones, then you look for the next opportunity or the opposite opportunity in the key level. Okay, SLs, again, remember to set it at 40 pips from entry. This is not too tight, not too loose, but make sure that if you are trading with the news, 40 pips might not be enough because of the high volume, the high volatility. So I suggest if you are not comfortable with that, or you are not ready to potentially lose more than you can gain, then stay out of the news, wait for the news to release first before deciding anything. All right, last but not least, we have UCAD. Okay, UCAD, we have our sell zone, which is an engulfing sell. Sorry, engulfing buy that failed, that meets this engulfing sell. So EG sell, then our buy zone is a fresh engulfing fail. It was an engulfing sell that failed, and after failing, price has yet to test the zone at all. Not even tap into the zone, not even the key level. Okay, so fresh engulfing fail for our buy zone. Now USD CAD is a pair that is crosses both USD and CAD, meaning when the news comes, it can be very, very volatile, especially meaning if the news shows up in the same direction, then potentially you can see a very huge spike or a huge drop. But if the news cancel each other out, it might be a battle between the buyers and the sellers until one of them wins. All right, so something just to monitor, especially observe when you are new to the market. So again, what can UCAD do? If it comes into our sell zone or buy zone, make sure H4 respects our zone. If you are a low risk trader like me or conservative, wait for the H4 to close first, right? Wait for H4 to close first in our zone. And then you can find your entries. Okay? But if you have a higher risk appetite and you're willing to risk some money for a potential gain in the Forex market, then when the price reaches before H4 closes or during the opening, or depending on how you want to trade, but when the price reaches, okay, without knowing where the H4 might go, then you can find your entries there. Okay, but just be careful because we do not have the decision from the time frame. It's not wrong, but just be careful. Okay? Now, if it breaks our zones, we know that potentially could test higher or lower zones, but we can also wait for the key level for the opposite direction. Okay, so that's it for the three pairs. For the TPs, again, I usually set my first TP at 20 pips. That's just a benchmark for me to break even all of my trades, but I like to TP at my next key level, right? But if you are someone who is still building your tolerance to the market, then TP at something you are comfortable with, whether it's a market structure, 10, 20, 30 pips. This is completely up to you. Do not be greedy, but focus on building confidence and tolerance to the market. All right, so that's it for all the pairs. Trade smart, trade wise, and I